I'm going to show you exactly how contractors trap you in with permits and then screw you over. Now, I've been buying houses for 15 years. I'm a professional general contractor, and I've flipped over 300 houses, hired hundreds of contractors to do work for me. And you've all heard the story. You get a scope of work and you think it's going to cost $30,000, $40,000, and then it ends up costing $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. And this is exactly how it happens. Now, certain jobs are going to require permits, and a lot of the houses that you buy are going to require permits. And it's not just one permit. Here's what happens is a GC pulls a building permit. So you would go out and hire a general contractor, or if you have the ability to go get a building permit yourself, you get the building permit for the project, but then underneath that building permit, you have to hire an electrician. That says elect. You have to hire a plumber, master plumber, and you have to hire HVAC. Okay, each one of those are going to require their own permit. So they pull their electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, different contractors here, underneath the main building permit that the GC, or in some cases a homeowner, can get themselves. I made a whole video about permitting and the whole process, so I'm going to leave it at that. But each one of these guys pulls a permit. And here's the thing that you got to understand is that contractors are some of the best salespeople out there. All right. Most of them didn't start that way. They learned to be that way because they have to win jobs. And I just want you to think about this, that if you were a contractor and you were trying to win a job, you know that the customer, you in this case, is talking to other contractors as well. So do you think that they're going to win the job if they think everybody else is bidding at $40,000 and they go look at all the things that are going to need to be done on that house and they come in at 80? Do you think that you're going to hire them? Probably not. You're going to think, because of the stigma out there, that that contractor is trying to screw you over. So instead, you're going to go for that $40,000 bid. And here's what happens. Okay, you are pushing for the $30,000 to $40,000 cosmetic renovation. That's what you want. That's what we're looking for. Okay, but the general contractor walks in and they see that, well, the framing's a little bit messed up in this house. There's no insulation in the crawl space underneath the floor joists. The decks are built wrong. You know, they're built to where the posts go in the ground and have concrete around them instead of how they're supposed to be built, which is concrete is poured and then the posts are put on top of that. All right. They see all of those things and they're thinking, well, if I say all of those things, that's $80,000. Or, you know, the structure's a little bit messed up, but you know, the customer is not asking me to do those things. And so if I make my scope of work include all of those things, never going to win the job. And then here's the bigger thing is that they know that when the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the MEPs come in and they do their job, they're going to find some other things. All right. So let's just talk about the electrical, because this leads to a bigger issue. And this is the thing that really blows up the whole deal for a lot of people. All right. But the unfortunate thing is that once the permit is pulled, all right, so you hire the general contractor. They have been hired for the, $40,000 original bid. You've given them the job. They really like this. You really like that guy. He pulls the building permit. Okay, now it's not so easy to just fire that guy if something comes up, because let's say into the job, they find it because they may have already seen it. Okay, they find something and they give a $10,000 change order. Well, they have the permit now. So you can't just pick them off or kick them off. You're kind of held hostage here. It would be a big thing for you to kick them off and bring somebody else in. It would be pretty costly. It's really hard to fire somebody mid-job. Okay, but the other thing is you're not even going to know that they're doing you wrong, because what's going to happen is they're going to get an inspection. So let me go back here before we get into the MEPs. So they're on a project. You're going to do a bunch of work. Okay, this is like phase one work. This is like the framing work, the changing around any framing, and then you're actually going to do the phase two work. Okay, that's the MEP, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all the rough end type of work is going to happen. And then at that point, you're actually going to get a few inspections done. Okay, you would get the rough electrical, you would get the rough plumbing, you would get the rough HVAC. Okay, you would get all of those inspections done. Okay, and then after that, you would get generally an insulation inspection. I'm running out of room here. And then after that, you would get the rough building inspection done. Okay. So that $10,000 change order, that comes, and they're not telling you that they found something. They're saying, hey, we got an inspection done, and the inspector says we have to do X, Y, and Z. That's going to cost $10,000. All right, so it's like the car salesman thing here. It's not me. It's the inspector says I have to do it, right? And so you're kind of in a bind. And honestly, at that point, it doesn't matter. It is $10,000 worth of work. So you can go hire another general contractor. It's going to be $10,000 worth of work for them as well. You're already caught. You are held hostage. All right, but that is at the rough building phase. All right. Before you ever got there, you went through all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing stuff, and a lot is going to come up there. This is where it gets really bad. And this is where it actually beefs up the general contractor's work. And I'm going to get to that. But so electrical, let's just imagine that maybe you were doing a kitchen. Okay, you're doing a kitchen, and I'm like, okay, I want to add some can lights in here, and we have to bring in some more receptacles. No big deal. Electrician says, that's going to be $3,000 to $5,000, and you're doing the math, and you're like, okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. Okay, but the electrician might know, or maybe they don't know, but when they are doing that work. Okay, so they've added circuits now, and now the electrical inspector comes in to do that rough electrical inspection, and they're like, okay, well, you added a circuit, so let's go back and look at the panel. And they look at the panel, the electrical panel, and they're like, well, this electrical panel is outdated. You need to do X, Y, and Z. You got to update these breakers. These breakers aren't code anymore. We need these special breakers. Oh, and it turns out, you need a separate ground bar and neutral bar. This might be jargon to you guys, but these are all things that come up. And because of the new breakers and the new things I need, well, that electrical panel doesn't really work anymore. So now I got to do a whole new electrical panel. Couple $1,000, maybe a little bit more. Okay, but the thing is, the wires that come into the panel come from the meter, and those aren't really up to par anymore. And really, since we're messing with that stuff, we really need to go look at the meter. Turns out that meter, the weather head doesn't go high enough. A lot of times, just a wire comes out of the meter, and they really need to be in a 2.5-inch pipe that protrudes up to a certain height, a lot of times through the roof line, and it's got like the fancy weather head on it, and that's what the electrical company, in your town comes and connects to. So they have to rebuild that whole thing. All right. So now you're looking at a very expensive job. Okay. But once again, permits are pulled. They're in the job. They're already caught. Okay. You're already caught. You're going to have to do that work no matter what. If it's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 worth of extra work, it's going to be for the next guy too. This all had to be caught beforehand. In fact, maybe before you even planned out the renovation that you're doing, maybe even before you bought the house. Okay. And then plumbing. Let's talk about plumbing. So a plumber, you might hire them because you want to, we're just going to add this bathroom. Okay. Or we're going to move around the bathroom a little bit. I want the toilet over there, the vanity over here. No big deal, right? Just got to move a couple pipes. Plumber comes in, they say, okay, well, we're going to charge $500 a fixture. We're moving 2 fixtures, $1,000. Okay. That's probably a little cheap. You're probably going to pay a little bit more than that. Okay. But the plumber knows, or they don't know, that when they get that rough inspection done, the inspector is going to come in and say, hey, we need to do a water test on these pipes. Okay. So 2 different types of pipes. There's the sewer line. That's like you flush the toilet. It all goes into a sewer line, or your bathtub drains goes into the sewer line. And then there's the water lines that supply the water. Okay, so supply lines, sewer lines. The plumber knows that the inspector is going to come in and they're going to make them do a water test. Okay, that's where you have to actually plug up the sewer lines all the way back at the edge of the house so you can fill up all of the sewer lines in the house all the way up as high as they can go to check for any leaks. Older house, gonna have leaks. And everywhere where there's a leak, it's gonna have to be repaired. A lot of times the best way to repair it is to tear all of that out. Okay, so now you're doing a lot more sewer line than you expected. Okay, and then they're also going to make you do a pressure test on the water lines. So you're going to have to fill those lines with pressure to see if there's any leaks. And if the water lines are galvanized water lines, there's some municipalities out there that as soon as you touch galvanized water lines, they make you replace them all the way to the water meter. Okay, big job. And okay, that's not it. Sewer lines, drain lines, talked about interchangeably, but drain lines are underneath your house. Sewer lines are outside of your house. So right at the edge of your foundation in the yard, those are your sewer lines that go to the city sewer. Okay, here's the other thing that they're going to make you do on a rough inspection is they're going to make you send a scope down those sewer lines to see if there's any breaks in them, to see if there's any damage. And a lot of times, especially on older houses, this leads to having to replace pieces of the sewer line or the whole thing, literally dig up the yard. So a couple $1,000 job of moving some stuff around in the bathroom could easily turn into a $15,000 job. See it happen all the time. HVAC, all right, there are rules. The way they really regulate the HVAC is through the Freon. Okay. The Freon is the liquid that gets pushed around in through the HVAC system that does the heating and cooling. Okay. It used to be that we would use R410. Okay. Then it got updated to a different type of Freon. And then just recently, like within the last year, they updated to a new type of Freon. Well, if you go touching the unit that has the old R410 in it, you can't do it anymore. Okay. If you have to replace just one piece of it, you got to replace the whole thing with the new units that take the new type of Freon. So you're talking about now a full HVAC replacement could be like $10,000. And what about the ductwork? The ductwork, for instance, in your crawl space needs to be insulated. A lot of times in older houses, they don't have them insulated. So you have to go do that retroactively. And you see how the things keep building up. But initially, the bid might not include all those extra things because to speak for the contractors, well, they don't know necessarily that they need to do those things. And if every time they came to give a bid, they said, oh, well, basically tear the freaking house down and redo it, you're never going to hire them because you're going to think they're trying to screw you over. All right. So they try to teeter the line of optimism. Maybe we won't have to do those. Knowing that there are other contractors that they are bidding against that absolutely are not adding those things because they know once they get in there, they get the permits, that you're going to be forced to have to hire them. Okay. And then the other thing, this is the big thing, is that when this like mechanical, electrical, plumbing work has to happen, especially the electrical work, well, you're going to have to open up walls to do a lot of this stuff. And once you open up walls, so there are like grandfathering rules that the codes enforcement will sometimes respect, all right, which means that it was built like that. And when it was built, it was done to code and you're not touching it. So we're going to leave it like it is. Okay. But if you have to open up that wall and expose it, well, now that it's been touched, we need to bring it up to current codes. And current codes might be a lot different than they were in the 80s when the house was built, for instance. And it might be, I've done houses before where we had to redo the headers across the whole house above every window and every door. We had to redo the framing because it was on, the wrong centers. We had to redo all kinds of things. It happens all the time. It's just a total can of worms. You have to bring the insulation up to code. You have to then re-drywall. You got to pay for demo. You got to pay for all these things. And that's how houses go from a $30,000 or $40,000 renovation to a $90,000 to $100,000 renovation. Okay, and the only defense you have, there's two ways to defend yourself here. Number one is you have trusted contractors. Okay, but trusted contractors do not come on your first time. Once again, these guys are great salespeople, not because they're grimy, okay, not because they're like used car salesman types. It's because their back's always against the wall because it's a really tough business. And if you are out there running your own business, you know that reality is a lot different for small business owners. You are fighting to put food on your plate and the plates of the people who work for you all the time. And it's a battle. It's not easy, especially in the construction business. Construction business has been around for a long time, and those margins have been eaten down to absolutely nothing. So these guys are in a fight. If you're new to the game, I'm sorry, but you are the hunted, not by nefarious means, but just because that's the reality. You have nothing else to offer them currently. You haven't done a lot of other things. Whereas once you have some track record built up, now you have a little bit of grounds to stand on, like, hey, better treat me well here because I have more coming up. So you definitely want to give that perception throughout the whole process, and you are going to have more coming up. So that's a good thing. But you aren't going to have a big track record. Okay, so trusted contractors usually come after you've worked with them multiple times. You hear me a lot of times talk about building relationship capital with these guys. And this is why, because then you can start to lean on them a little bit. So what is the only true defense? And that's you. You have to gain the knowledge. You have to know how to build scopes of work. You need to know these things that could come up so you can see around those corners. All right. And that's why people who get through a few flips on their own or a few rental projects, they can start seeing around those corners. And business is really about staying afloat long enough to learn those lessons so you can see around more corners. And that's when things start to grow exponentially for you. The beginning is always tough. And that's why I started this free school community. It's free for now. Link will be in the description. You guys can join. We talk about these things, going to build up your skills so you can go be a successful real estate investor. And if you're not ready to join that right now, or if you've already joined, check out this video right here. Talk to you guys soon.